Originally, she was the person that's supposed to handle it. She forgot to have me just put them out.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the March 9th meeting of the Tualatin City Council. I'd like to call the meeting to order this evening and start in our traditional manner with the Pledge of Allegiance. Would you like to do the honors this evening? Councilor Reed. Let's get the microphones.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll start off this evening with announcements. The very first one will be recognition for the Tualatin 2040 Community Advisory Committee members. And we have Karen Pearl Fox, Senior Planner and Project Manager for Tualatin 2040. They're going to give us an overview of the committee work, and also we'll have certificates for the committee members who volunteered so generously of their time.
Good evening, City Council members. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm here with Steve Coper, Planning Manager. My name is Karen Pearl Fox. I'm the Senior Planner for the city and served as the Project Manager for the Tualatin 2040 project. Tonight, we honor and express the city's appreciation to the Community Advisory Committee, who is mostly here behind us. Between the spring and fall of 2019, they provided document review and a significant amount of policy input on the housing needs analysis, the economic opportunities analysis, and the accompanying strategy documents for each of those. The CAC also provided input on the policy priorities document for the project, which included housing and economic strategies and actions, as you may recall. The CAC members included members with a diverse range of backgrounds, all came with a strong commitment and interest in contributing to the City of Tualatin's future by helping to inform a path forward for the next 20 years on housing and economic development in the city. City staff, so I'm speaking for us, and Quilla is also here, found the members to be consistently thoughtful and enthusiastic participators at the meeting. We honor the CAC members who treated everyone with respect, asked excellent questions, raised issues, and expressed ideas or concerns clearly, honestly, and in a timely manner. They actively listened at meetings. They utilized collaborative and creative approaches to develop proposed strategies and actions, and they willingly grappled with challenging issues and put forward thoughtful ideas for solutions. They strove for and built consensus whenever possible. And now we have a very brief presentation, if I can get it to open. It wasn't opening before. Nicole, I'm not able to open it. It's not opening.
Just thinking about it.
Think really hard. It's this one.
Yep.
Do your magic, please.
Are any of them working? I don't know. No, they're not. Look at the floor. Let's do this. Let's pull this out real quick.
Do 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 do. Berkeley Internet Bates.
I know, right? That's crazy. Can we do it without the presentation? Going in all my computer.
All right, well, sorry about that. We're having a little computer trouble. The presentation is about the CAC in action, and it is in your packet, I believe. So for all these reasons and more, the city honors each of the CAC members tonight with a certificate of appreciation for their valued contributions on housing and economics as part of the Tualatin 2040 project. The way that we're going to do this is we will hand out certificates from here when we call up your name. And then if you would, each of you would just go to the front of the room, kind of centered. We will follow with a picture once everybody's up there, so stay up there when you get up there. So I'll read them off. You want to hand them out?
Sure.
Okay.
Thanks.
Alice Galloway Neely. Angela Handren. Daniel Bachhuber.
I'll just skip over the people that are there.
Joe Lipscomb. Susan Nowak.
Put you out of order, Jack. Yeah, you start.
Rachel Duke. And she'll receive the certificate for Doug Planback as well. Oh, he is? Oh, he's here? Oh. Doug Planback? Here he is. All right.
That's a pretty good turnout.
I'm going to read the other names off too, even though they're not here. Bryce Payne, Kelly Aprati, Ken Johnson, Lainey Magasarilli, Linda Moholt, Manny Trujillo, and Cindy Hillier. We thank all of you so greatly. We're really, really proud to have worked with you as staff. We found you absolutely delightful and did really hard work on a very broad range of topics and concepts that the city needed to tackle at this time. So thank you so much for everything. Please stay there. And Megan is going to come up and take a photograph of you.
Would you mind turning your certificate around?
Joe.
Thank you. If you're in between, there we go. Then I can see you. Thank you.
And again, thank you all so much for your time and all of the hours that you volunteered. I think it's a wonderful way to show how much you love your community and you value your neighbors when you're willing to give of yourself and give of your time, especially to something that's so important about looking forward and looking to the future and the longevity and the sustainability and the livability of our city by what you did. And to be able to talk about things that are as important as, you know, economic opportunities and housing and aging and transportation and just all the different things that you guys tackled to pull this all together for us. I think it's just incredible. And I really salute you for the work that you did, and we're very, very grateful. I know it was probably an awful lot of meetings and a lot of hours, but it was very much appreciated, and thank you very much. Appreciate that. So for the second thing on the agenda tonight, under announcements, Jerry Ann Thompson, our library director, is going to come talk to us about the Food for Fines event.
Hello.
Hello.
Good evening. So Tualatin Library is going to be hosting our annual Food for Fines event on March 21st through 29th during spring break. The Food for Fines campaign allows our library patrons who have overdue fines to come in and donate canned goods in exchange for fine forgiveness. For every 2 donated items, they receive a voucher for $1 to redeem against overdue fines, up to a maximum of $10 per person. All of the items collected will be donated to the Tualatin Schoolhouse Pantry, which is located on the lower level of Rolling Hills Community Church on Moreland Road. The food pantry provides emergency food assistance to people who live in Tualatin, Durham, Lake Oswego, Wilsonville, and West Lynn areas. They serve more than 400 families and individuals each month. We conduct Food for Fines in March because the pantry receives fewer donations in the spring than they do in other times of the year. Last year, we donated more than 400 pounds of food during our Food for Fines drive. The most needed items for donation are cereals, canned pasta, chili and hearty soups, canned fruit, canned vegetables, and macaroni and cheese. So we hope that whether you have fines on your library card or not, it's a good time to give to a very well-deserved organization in our community. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. And I can guarantee you that my husband will be down to see you somewhere the week of March 21st.
Tell him to not feel bad, I've got late fees too.
That's great. He'll probably be the one with the really big box. of things. Next on our agenda is the public comment section of our meetings. This is an opportunity for anyone to address the council on matters that are not included on tonight's agenda. Anyone can come and speak if they'd like. We also have sign-up slips, but we don't have anyone signed up this evening. Is there anyone here who would like to address the council during the public comment section? All righty then, moving right along. Next is the consent agenda. The items on the consent agenda are considered routine and will be adopted by a motion unless someone on the council would like one of them removed and heard separately later tonight. The consent agenda consists of consideration of approval of the work session minutes of February 10th, 2020, work session and regular minutes of February 24th, 2020, consideration of approval of late liquor license renewals for 2020, and that is it. Would anyone like anything taken off the consent agenda? Okay. I consider a motion.
Motion to pass the consent agenda as read.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the consent agenda as read. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I guess that's unanimous with our 5-person council tonight. Alrighty, next on our agenda is special reports, and we have the WICLS, WCCLS, and Public Safety Levies presentation. And we have Lisa Tattersall from Washington County Cooperative Library Service and Washington County Sheriff Pat Garrett. If you'd like to come up and make a joint presentation for us this evening,
Yeah, thank you.
that would be terrific.
Sorry, do I hit escape? Oh, there it goes. Okay.
And hopefully, technically, we're caught up.
Thank you, Councillor Grimes. I'm going to be joined by a couple of colleagues when the public safety levy follows the library levy.
Perfect.
Thank
That'd be
you.
great.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me here today to share some information with you about Measure 34297. I'm from Washington County Cooperative Library Services, or WICLS, rhymes with pickles. We actually just recently learned that a lot of people call us WICLS in the county. Anyway, but apparently that has extended to the city of Tualatin as well. So about 40% of WCCLS funding comes from an expiring local option property tax levy. If passed, Measure 34297 would renew a 5-year levy that will expire in June 2021 at the same fixed rate of 22 cents per $1,000 of assessed value. The renewed levy would also provide about 40% of WCCLS funding and would run from July 21 through June 26. A renewed levy would maintain current levels of countywide library service for another 5 years. Measure 34297 would provide funding to maintain open hours for libraries that serve all county residents, including libraries in Aloha, Banks, Beaverton, Cedar Mill, Cornelius, Forest Grove, Garden Home,
Hillsborough, North Plains, Sherwood, Tigard, Tualatin, and West Slope. WCCLS Library saw 3.8 million visits in fiscal year 18-19. The levy would support children's reading events, which average about 285,000 participants each year. This would include annual summer reading programs for youth and literacy programs for preschoolers. In addition, libraries would provide reading and learning programs for students, including online homework and tutoring services for all kids in Washington County. The measure would provide funds for the purchase of books, ebooks, and other materials that are available to all library users. It would fund the purchase of additional copies of in-demand books in order to reduce wait times, and the funding would also provide online access that allows users to reserve books to pick up at any library. In fiscal year 18-19, our users checked out over 11.2 million items. Measure 34-297 would allow libraries to continue to provide information and instruction to assist those looking for jobs or career development. Job seekers could continue to use library computers and internet access to apply for jobs and access learning tools for career development. The measure would also maintain central support and services, which include the following: central sorting and book delivery between 16 libraries 7 days a week, allowing all county residents to access the shared collection of 1.6 million books and other materials, a shared library inventory management and online request system, the WCCLS.org website and shared library events calendar, as well as book deliveries to county residents who are homebound or living in care facilities. If passed, the measure would renew a 5-year levy that expires in June 21. The proposed levy would maintain a fixed rate of 22 cents per 1,000 of assessed value running from July 21 through June 26. And in 2021, typical homeowners with an assessed value of $300,000 would pay $66 per year if the levy was passed. If the measure doesn't pass, reductions in service levels would likely occur, including reductions in hours, book purchases, and events, as well as reductions in countywide services such as the countywide online catalog and book delivery. Homeowners would also not be assessed the tax of 22 cents per 1,000. We've got more detailed information on our website at wccls.org/levy, and I'm also happy to answer any questions you have now. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Do we have any questions from council?
Thanks for your presentation. We have spoken about this, and we're tremendously in support of what you're doing. This levy provides 27% of the funding for our local library, so we understand if those funds aren't there that the programming is going to suffer, and that the library is really the centerpiece of our community in terms of a gathering place. So I'm going to move that we direct staff to prepare a resolution in support of the measure. So I'd like to, if anyone wants to second that and vote on it.
Second. Yes, okay. And I have a motion and a second. Are we all supportive of that? Yes, absolutely. Perfect. Thank you very much for your presentation. Oh, I'm sorry. Councilor Morrison?
Yeah, again, thank you very much for the presentation. Appreciate everything that the entire library system does for the entire system. And one of the points I want to make is to the sheriff, and that is that this is, in my opinion, in talking to a lot of voters, something that they're behind because they can see it and they can feel it and they use it. And so thank you again. The library, our Tualatin library is amazing, mainly because we have better staff than anyone else in the county.
You have a wonderful staff, absolutely.
We do have a wonderful staff. But again, I want to thank you for everything that the system does in supporting each individual city.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. And staff will work on preparing a letter of support. So appreciate that very much. Thank you. And now Sheriff Garrett will share his presentation with us.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Council, and we are equally honored to have some time tonight to share with you a bit about the Washington County Public Safety Local Option Replacement Levy. And thank you for your support to the library levy. You know, public employees can't advocate on behalf of levies. I'm privileged to be able to do that, and would just encourage everybody who's watching to support that library levy. It's a really important part of our community fabric. I'm Pat Garrett. I'm the Washington County Sheriff, and we'll just make brief introductions and then kick it off.
Good evening, counselors. My name is Lynn Schroeder. I'm the Juvenile Department Director for Washington County. It's a privilege to be here.
Thank you.
I'm Jeff McLean. I'm one of our senior deputy district attorneys in Washington County. I'm here to represent the district attorney's office.
Great. Thank you guys very much for joining us tonight.
The Washington County Public Safety Levy is, the current levy will expire at the end of June in 2021. It is a countywide systems levy, and you might think about the public safety system as an ecosystem where the components of that system all have to be mutually supportive and strong enough to support like your terrific police department and everything that they do. It includes prosecution services, so that if a Tualatin police officer makes an arrest and that person comes to jail, and when it's appropriate to prosecute that crime, that there's enough prosecutors to do that. When that person is released back into the community, that there are probation officers that supervise and provide support and accountability to that person coming back into the community. It provides services like a transport vehicle, and in 2019, that transport vehicle transported, let's see here, about 90 individuals who were in custody of the Tualatin Police Department to Hillsborough, saving your officers a trip. And then there's juvenile and some additional services that we'll dive into. In addition to some special enforcement or response teams like our crisis negotiations unit, our tactical negotiations team, and our mental health response team. So diving into the proposed levy, what the current services that would be supported by the passage of the replacement levy includes what you see on this slide. So it includes prosecution services addressing crimes throughout the county. Those that emanate from the city of Tualatin and the surrounding areas, that we have the kind of capacity to do that. Treatment and supervision, like I touched on just a minute ago, and then supervision and treatment of juvenile offenders in a way that is outside the quote-unquote justice system. We'll let Lynn talk about here in a minute. Our mental health response team is a countywide service that responds to folks who are in crisis or have a mental health kind of condition, and they responded to over 5,000 calls just last year alone. A significant number of those calls were resolved by non-traditional means, like referring or taking someone to the Hawthorne Walk-In Center, or connecting them with mental health treatment services, housing or addiction services. Real important service that is supported by the Public Safety Local Option Levy. And then we also have forensics unit that helps analyze crime scenes and take pictures and do latent print comparison. And just earlier this year, that forensics science unit at the Sheriff's Office gained national accreditation. So they're meeting the high professional standards of the industry, and have worked several years to get that credential. It would continue to support some shelters which are really focused on survivors of domestic violence, and that list of wonderful shelter services is on the slide in front of you, to include the Domestic Violence Resource Center, Community Action, Family Promise of Washington County, our Good Neighbor Center, Safe Place Youth Shelter, and the Family Justice Center. The Family Justice Center, as you probably know, is an interagency, one-stop location where survivors and those at risk of domestic violence can get help and break that cycle of violence. We have a detective assigned to that center, in part because of what the levy provides. We're just a really, really happy partner to be there, and we're really, honestly, I believe, saving lives as a result of the Family Justice Center. There are services which will be enhanced if this levy prevails, and we'll just touch on some of those.
I'll go and kind of jump in right here. One of the things that will affect our office, as you'll see there, with the levy, what the service would provide would be additional funding from one district attorney's position. And this is, on one hand, really a disturbing statistic you're going to see, but there is I call it the slight silver lining to this. We're talking about increase in funding for prosecution of child abuse cases and child pornography cases. As you'll see, as you can see over the few years there, those number of crimes have increased. Part of the reason they've increased is through the help of the Sheriff's Office and working with law enforcement, not only with the Sheriff's Office, Tualatin Police Department, all the agencies in Washington County. We've been able to more aggressively prosecute these cases, which are obviously our most vulnerable victims besides our elderly or our children in the community. And we're able to try to protect them. That's what I call the silver lining part of this. As you can see by the increased number of cases to do that, we have a dedicated way our office is broken down. Besides our misdemeanor unit and felony unit, we have a specific child abuse unit. There's 4 attorneys in there. They're supervised by another senior attorney in that unit. This would help us allow another district attorney's spot to that position, which would be critically important to help us expand that. We have a forensics team that kind of works with those cases. We have a purser office that's kind of designated those cases because these become very complex cases, especially when we're talking internet exploitation of children and working with basically trying to prosecute those crimes. And part of this levy would help us carry out that prosecution, really protect the community and protect our children. Kind of moving along lines, the other big area that we're focusing on that would help, part of this would be is the domestic violence cases. And as you can see, in 2019, there were 985 domestic violence cases that were filed. That's a 36% increase in the caseload from the previous year. Again, that's a very disturbing statistic on one hand, but what it is it's kind of a recognition of what's going on in the community. Not unfortunately in the community, not only in Tualatin, but throughout Washington County. And again, this is an area we created over the past year. DA Kevin Barton and the rest of us, the management team, we've created a domestic violence unit, which that composes of a senior district attorney, 2 felony attorneys, and 2 misdemeanor attorneys who kind of work half-time on that, who are designated specifically just to work domestic violence cases. That's how much of a focus we need to put on this, and we're trying to address that issue even more. I've been a prosecutor for about 22 years altogether, 20 years here in Washington County, and this has been a significant, I think, valuable asset in us trying to protect another vulnerable section of the community, which are victims of domestic violence. This levy, as you can see, the increase in cases would allow us to help continue to prosecute those cases. Not only do we have in our office, we have our attorneys that are prosecuting those cases, but we have victims advocates that assist those folks, help them get out of that situation and process, get them assistance, help them in the right direction while we're trying to prosecute those cases so we can kind of end that cycle as much as we can of domestic violence. So this levy would help us continue to be able to prosecute those cases.
Another area that would be enhanced with the passage of this levy is our jail. And as you might remember, a 56-bed housing unit in our jail is entirely funded through this levy. This levy would add 4 deputies to that team. We have had the same size jail since 1998, and in those 22 years, our county has grown by about 230,000 some folks, which means that that same space in the jail is full of people who are more challenging to manage. Unfortunately, they are, as much as we divert as many people as we can with mental illness factors, that's just a factor that we are having to deal with in jail. Folks that are in there are just they're more dangerous, and so it takes more deputies to move them throughout the facility and to court and back. And this levy would enhance those services to help us ensure that we can do that in a safe manner.
The vast majority of juvenile department work is out in the community. We work collaboratively with schools and law enforcement, community providers. Right now we actually have a collaborative project with the Tualatin High School reaching out to truant youth and have had some interesting results from that. Last year I went around to all the law enforcement agencies and asked them what they would like support from the juvenile department, and one of the themes that they brought up was some sort of county-wide community-based diversion program. At this point in time, the county's down to 1 peer court in Beaverton. And what we know about diversion programs is youth are much less likely to recidivate if they're handled in the community with partners that can support them to get involved in positive activities. And so one of the additions in the levy that if it's passed is 1.5 million going toward a countywide diversion program that would handle about 1,000 youth over the life of the levy, supporting them in accountability, response to victims, response to the community, and learning skills. And that would be a contract that we would enter with community organizations to run that. Another service that would be added if the levy passes is funding to reduce the transition time from emergency shelters to housing for individuals and families, and that includes survivors of domestic violence. What we've seen in the last couple of years for temporary shelters is a 70% increase in use. And so to address this, there's some funding that would be for housing, permanent housing, as well as navigators to help individuals get into housing and get employment. And that would also would be a contract with nonprofit agencies.
We understand the economics of this are important. They're important to cities, they're important to businesses, and to every taxpayer. This is a replacement levy. It comes with a 5-cent increase on the assessed value to enhance those services that we have described and to continue those other services that we are currently provided and supported by the levy. Typical homeowner who has a house today with an assessed value, that average assessed value of a home today is about $300,000. For that homeowner, that annual cost for this levy would be $141 for the first year, which would be 2021, which would be about $20 more than they paid in 2020, or about $12 a month. If the levy does not pass, there would be a reduction in 2021 of about $126 per year, and the 16% of the justice system, which is supported by the levy, would not be there as a result. So if the levy does prevail, it would generate the funding to continue current services at $187.7 million across the 5 years, and the enhanced services would be funded at about $9.8 million across that same 5-year period, for a total revenue of about $197 million. Again, this is an ecosystem, and we want to support the great work that your police department's doing across the spectrum of public safety and justice services. Thank you for your patience and letting us spend this evening with you, and love to answer your questions.
Thank you very much. That was a very compelling presentation, and it's just amazing to me the broadness and the variety of services that we're offering to the community. I mean, when you think about community policing and police levies and safety, I mean, I think people have one idea of what they see the patrol cars and the officers out on the street doing their work, following up on, you know, crimes against people and property, but there's this whole other side of mental health experts and community safety and housing and employment and everything else that sort of dovetails into what you guys do these days, and it's amazing, and it's rather humbling too. So thank you very much for your presentation. Are there any questions from counselors? Counselor Pratt? Oh, sorry.
You mentioned that if the levy doesn't pass, some services will be reduced. What would be those services, for instance?
A housing unit in our jail would not remain open. So 56 fewer beds of a 572-bed jail. Our mental health response team would be at risk. Special enforcement teams like our crisis negotiations unit, our tactical negotiations unit, would be severely less effective.
There's currently 11 positions from the juvenile department funded by the levy, and contracts for services for youth that we use for treatment to help them re-engage in school and be successful. We would lose those. Exactly what positions would be lost, we'd have to figure that out. It's possible that that's almost our entire shelter program, where kids are diverted from detention or our early intervention work.
Will there be any services reduce the crimes that you showed us, the higher crimes? For instance, the child abuse and the other.
Yes, absolutely. So there's some countywide, thanks, Counselor, that's a great question. There are some countywide investigative and law enforcement services that are provided by the Sheriff's Office to assist in those kinds of cases, to include child abuse and domestic violence, our support to the Domestic Violence Resource Center, where survivors and those at risk can go and get help, would be in jeopardy. We would have to make some very, very tough decisions, but they would absolutely be at risk. And on the DA's side,
on the DA's side, I mean, obviously we prosecute those cases. We're never going to stop doing that. But what I think is important to kind of keep in mind is that folks know, not only in the city of Tualatin, but throughout the county, the growth of Washington County. We're currently, I believe, tell me if I'm correct on this, the second largest population in the state. But to give you an idea of number of attorneys, for example, in our office, we have approximately, counting our child support, 43 attorneys. So we're the second around, what's their current population compared to Multnomah County?
624,000 in our county.
All right, and Multnomah County is?
About 200,000 more.
And Multnomah County probably has over 70 prosecutors in their office. They have units just set up like we do. What that would do is obviously put significant strain on our ability to prosecute those cases. I mean, we'd still obviously do that, but as the population grows, crime unfortunately increases and the types of crimes increase, and now you're having a caseload for the individual prosecutor that increases, just like it does for detectives, whatever unit they're working with, child abuse detectives that work in person crimes, whatever it may be across the board. It just kind of puts that much more of a strain throughout the system. And we obviously deal with it, but it would, as you can see with the numbers and the increase in that, it would be significantly more difficult to do so.
Counselor, I can tell you that at the Sheriff's Office, we screen on average 11 reports of potential child abuse every single day. They come to us on a Department of Human Services Form 307 or DHS 307. 11 a day is the average. We're doing everything we can to keep up. Your police department is also screening those kinds of cases, and those take some very focused and keen attention to do a welfare check, assess whether or not there's potential crimes involved, or a child is being neglected or abused. And so, we would continue that work. Other work would fall off. It's just really hard to say what other work would fall off, but it is 16% of the current public safety and justice system funding comes from this levy.
Right. Well, I think it's important for people to know what services will be cut, and specifically the higher ones, like child abuse, and I think the community would be interested to know if this levy doesn't pass, the more strain will be on those services that are highly important. Thank you.
Oh, I just want to mention, the New York Times did a real thorough investigation the last 2 weeks about child abuse things on the internet, and it's horrific, but if you have an interest. My question to you, I guess, is more, I'm sure what the additional funding you're asking for is a fraction of what you need, and so I'd like you to speak a little to the process you went through to determine what that amount was, and what it looks like you've gone through very thoroughly and determined what are the most important services, but just how you came to that amount.
Thank you, Counselor, for that question. So the Board of County Commissioners is the decision-making authority on this levy, and I know, if you know them, they are thoughtful, deliberate, they have really engaging conversations, and they considered a range of options to include maintaining current service levels, or really asking the community, assessing based on their kind of the ground truth that they have in their districts, what are those service areas that are in most need of enhancement. We have grown over 10,000 residents across the county every year for a fair number of years now. They also sought our opinions about where our work is the most pressing, and we appreciated that. And in the end, they came down really to, there was a greater increase with more services, and then there was current services, and they really landed about in the middle. Is kind of the process that played out.
Unless Maria has another question. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I just wanted to make a motion to support this levy. Okay.
Thanks for your presentation, and thank you for what you do every day. You're on the front lines, and as our chief has been heard to say, you often encounter people on their very worst day. And for $12 a month to protect the most vulnerable and prosecute the alleged most devious, I think this is a no-brainer. So I will join your motion and support.
Excellent. Did you want to make a motion, Councilor Morrison?
No, I have a couple of comments and a couple of questions. 5 years ago, I sat back there and listened to your presentation, and this council was highly concerned of the lack of services throughout the county. You seem to be highly focused in Hillsborough, which probably for a long time was a reasonable request. But 5 years ago, that was a huge concern, and 5 of those councilors are gone. But that concern still is here, and it resonates with the city, not only our city, but the city of city of Tigard. I know that Beaverton has had some concerns about sheriff support. The residents in Tualatin don't see it, except that on their worst day, or in an area where they don't understand why they should be paying for this support. You make our jobs really, really hard when you are very slow to roll out things like the Family Promise Program. I believe it's in Beaverton. You mentioned your PERS also in Beaverton. You need to still think in a wider scope to make our job easier and your job easier in 5 years, because this gets, I believe, tougher and tougher every 5 years because of a lack of visibility. In Tigard and Tualatin, we don't see the sheriffs ever. And we do hear, though, complaints, or we read stories about, how something happened in Tualatin and then they were taken to Hillsborough. The famous actor and his little driving problem comes to mind. You have to start taking some steps to expand your footprint within the county. And specifically the youth service program, it is extremely difficult for Tualatin residents who get involved in that program because they typically have to then go to Hillsborough. The same with somebody who's trying to recover from a problem that they had. There's no services here. They have to literally take time off of work from a job that is extremely difficult to get if you have a criminal record, and then figure out a way to get to Hillsborough with a lack of public transportation to get through all that paperwork so that they can continue trying to restore their life. And we don't do a very good job of enabling those individuals to recover. And so my request from you is the same one that Joel Davis made here 5 years ago, and that is you have to start bringing services to the rest of the county. Otherwise, it's just going to become impossible to support you. And I wish you luck. What you do is amazing. Again, your expansion into the Family Promise Program, your expansion with the youth services has been well received, but you have to do more. You have to be more transparent in what you're doing. You need to start bringing more services out to the rest of the county.
Well, Councilor Morrison, I appreciate that really important feedback. That is what we need to hear to make sure that we know the steps that we need to take to do a better job. And I will take that back, and I will work on that from a sheriff's office standpoint. This is a systems-wide levy, as we talked about, but from a sheriff's office standpoint, I hear you loud and clear. And thank you for that.
And I would say also to the district attorney's office that they need satellite offices and resources available, because the people who are dealing with the district attorney's office, it is usually not the really wealthy people. They send their attorney. It's the people who are at risk, and it's the ones that we want to give a second chance to, who we're trying to figure out a way to help, and then we create this system that makes it sometimes, from their perspective, impossible to overcome. And we can always encourage them to move to Hillsborough. I don't think, though, the mayor of Hillsborough would be happy if we started promoting that kind of, and nor would we here in Tualatin, because we like our residents and we like our community, and we love the parents and the kids, and those who do run into risk, we would like to see them make a recovery and to get to that path of success.
No, and Council, I appreciate those comments. The way I perceive it, I know my boss, Kevin Barton, would agree. From being a district attorney, we represent the whole county, which doesn't mean Hillsborough. We represent Tualatin, Tigard, everywhere we do. And we work with law enforcement everywhere. We want to work with the communities more and do community outreach programs and work with victims everywhere. I know we work with law enforcement throughout there, the school resource officers. Obviously, I know you have ones at Hazelbrook and at Tualatin. I know who they are. Yep, I know who they are.
The Miller Boys.
Yep, it is, absolutely. And those are valuable resources that we work with. And so I think that our relationship is with everybody in being Tualatin. And obviously, I'm speaking as a senior DA here for the whole county, and my public, in this part of it, as a side there that has nothing to do, is just a private citizen speaking. I totally appreciate what you're saying too, and being a resident of Tualatin as a private citizen, I appreciate that. As a senior DA, what I want to say is we do represent the whole county in this, especially including Tualatin, and understand those concerns.
I also appreciate your concerns and hear you loud and clear. It's hard for individuals to get all the way to Hillsborough. In response to that, about 5 years ago, we reorganized into regional teams. So we have 3 staff dedicated to the southern end of the county, and one of them is stationed at Tualatin High School right now. So we've been working to address that.
And if I didn't make that clear, yes, we have been. I mentioned Prayers in the Family Promise, but there, yes, we are aware of other programs, but too slow and not visible enough.
And my comment is more for those who don't have children that attend school, but are interested in making sure our children are safe. Like there's a lot of our population in Tualatin are on the mature side, and then you have younger families, but you have people like me who don't have any children, who, if I don't hear it from you that you're saying that the youth in our high school are interesting. I don't know if that's positive or negative. I mean, it's because I don't have children, and they don't go to the high school. So I don't know what kind of services you're providing to us here, but it's good for to hear what kind of ideas you have, or if we have any kind of services. But it is important for those people that are out in our community and who are listening to us right now or seeing us, what you're doing about the youth in Tualatin, because they don't have children going to Tualatin High School. So thank you. But definitely I agree to some extent with Councilor Morris.
Lynn, would you like to speak to the collaboration that you have with Tualatin High School? For
Sure,
those
I
who
could
might not
say
be as familiar
a
with
few
it.
words about that right now. The Tigard Tualatin High School has always been really proactive working with us. We had a Safe Schools grant with them for 5 years that brought juvenile counselors into the schools. And so because we'd had that experience and it had been as successful as it was, about 1.5 years ago, we started working with the Tualatin High School. What we identified is there was a high number of youth who were not attending school, and they didn't understand why they weren't attending school. And we know that truant youth are very much at risk for becoming involved in the delinquent system because, time is on their hands and they're not engaging in positive activities. So we worked collectively with the high school to identify different strategies and looked at best practices, how to reach out and re-engage those youth. And we found that a very high percentage of them were Latino youth, and so we brought in culturally responsive providers to assist in that process. Right now there's a whole classroom dedicated to youth who aren't quite ready to move back into the whole school, but they've helped quite a number of youth graduate. They have an engagement with an athletic agency here in town so that they have free ability to work out. And we're also engaging them in skill building classes. So we're learning as we go, but it's been an exciting collaboration. Other schools keep saying, can't we have a juvenile counselor in our school, like Tualatin High School? And unfortunately, we don't have the resources to do that in every school, but it was partly because of that collaboration and how effectively we could work together that we made that decision.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah.
And that's a great example of the levy dollars at work in the local community. So thank you for that. Were you interested in making a motion in support of the levy?
I'd like to propose that we make a motion to support the safety levy.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are we all in support?
One point of clarification.
Yes.
I made a mistake on the last motion, so we're going to have to redo that one. But for this one, I said that we would direct staff to prepare a resolution because of public laws
yeah.
about, yeah. So
Needs to
we will
pass.
prepare the resolution and have staff put it on the agenda for our next meeting, if you'll accept that as your motion.
All right.
Is this for the WIFers or what?
No, this is for
For this one?
public safety levy, and then we'll go
Public
back and do the
safety levy.
library one.
Okay. Excellent. Well, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you
We
for your
appreciate
support.
you being
Thank you very
here.
much. Thank
Aye.
you for your feedback.
Oh, aye. Yes, we're all in support. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And-
Thank you.
Yes.
You bet. You as well.
We appreciate it.
No. We'll come back.
We want
Yeah.
honesty.
You're safe in here, Paul.
All right.
He knows who he is.
Okay. All right, thank you very much.
Can we redo the
Yeah.
last one?
I think we'd like to, at this time. Thank you. I think we'd like to readdress the motion we made in support of the library levy.
Right, I'd like
So we'd
to,
like to correct the way that we,
right, revise that motion to provide
please.
that counselors will provide a resolution to be put on the next agenda in support of the Wickles library levy.
perfect. And-
Second.
Great. It's moved and seconded, and I believe we're all in support.
Aye.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thanks for catching that. Okay. Wonderful. Now we have a general business item. We have consideration of resolution number 5485-20, awarding a construction manager general contracting contract to Remick Construction for the Tualatin City Services Project and authorizing the city manager to execute a contract. And Clay Reynolds, our maintenance services manager, will be making the presentation to us.
Good evening,
Hi.
Council President, members of the council.
Welcome.
Give me just a second here to find the right screen. For the record, my name is Clayton Reynolds, maintenance services manager for the city. And as you know, I wear several hats. One of those is project manager for this city services building. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. Before I get started, I wanted to take a step back and I'll share all the things we're going to cover, but I would like to introduce you to the team that's back here. They weren't forced to be here. I didn't pay them. This is a major milestone asking for the GMP. And first I'd like to introduce and have them stand up is from Plan B Consultancy is Gerard Mulrooney and Ernesto Vasquez. If it weren't for them, we'd still be a year from now before we'd started building this and I'd have a lot less hair. Secondly, I'd like to introduce Alice Knorr, who represents Scott Edwards Architecture. Oh,
There
she
she
moved
is.
on me.
Yeah.
They've been great. And then third, I'd like to introduce David Brookings with Bremen Construction. I can't tell you how much I appreciate the team. We made great choices, great choices. They've been dynamic. We started out with a high dollar, got to a point here where we can have a building I think we'll all be proud of and we can afford. So thank you to them and for that. So thank you for
Excellent.
allowing me
Thank
to
you
do
for-
that. And with that, we'll get the project started. What I'd like to do tonight is go over the concept plan just briefly, just to reiterate why we're doing what we're doing. I'd like to bring you up to progress where we're at, talk about the timeline when we get it done. Also want to share some renderings with what the design looks like. And then I'm going to ask you to approve the GMP contract. And of course, we'll answer any questions or discuss anything you'd like to discuss. So the concept, just a reminder that this completes the last phase of the operations master plan, co-locates all of the services into one area, all the permitting. It's going to create some efficiencies, all the development services and planning, and also municipal court coming out as well, which I know you're aware of. Benefits, one-stop shopping for permitting. It's going to increase the staff efficiency being co-located. I think that's going to make a big difference. It also is going to enable finance and administration to move back into the city offices. That'll be key. Eliminates the office rental space, and it meets all of our needs and requirements. So I think everybody's looking forward to that. Budget is $8 million. A little over $4 million of that is going to be funded with cash on hand. The remaining will be financed. Enterprise funds will, part of the finance come from the enterprise funds. The remaining for the general fund will come out of the savings we saved from the Seneca lease. And finally, we're finally ready to break ground. This is the exciting part. There's been a lot of effort, a lot of work. We've accomplished a lot. Plan text amendments have been completed. We also did a lot consolidation thanks to legal, finally getting that done the right way. Getting the design, working together, as you know, that we first come in with the project costs are about $2.5 million over initially, and working with Bremick and with Scott Edwards, Plan B, come up with a plan to come up with something that'll fit our budgets. That's kind of important to meet the budget for some reason. So the design's completed, it's out for permits right now, AR is approved. And then again, we'll talk about the contract, GMP contract for tonight. I wanted to take a step back for just a second and talk about the employee advisory group. Not all of them are here. This is from the last meeting. But one of the things we've done, we've got an executive group that we meet, but also we have an employee advisory group. There isn't any managers are in that group. There's somebody from each affected department. And if from that list you saw earlier, there's a lot of people who are affected with the move. You know, it's some are moved from different offices. It's not always a popular choice. But what I really respect is that they've come at it with great ideas, a lot of passion, a lot of good ideas about how to save money, how can we make it efficient. It's just been a great collaborative effort. And I just want to do the reminder that we're not only building a building, we're kind of building a team and building relationships along the way as well. I think we spent a little bit more time than maybe we would have, but I think we'll make up for that on the construction side of things. So it's, you guys have a great employee group. And then a couple of managers I want to shout out to, Steve Coper, Chris Ragland, really instrumental in helping work through a lot of details. Kim McMillan's another one as well. Yeah, great staff. Can't say enough on how much I appreciate them. Timeline. Originally timeline, we were hoping like December this year. We moved it up to toward the end of February this year. Or not this year, but 2021. Want to be realistic about what it is. We're not quite sure the permitting coming from Washington County, plus a couple of other factors. I'd rather be honest about what we think it's really going to be than tell you something what we wish it would be. We think that's where that'll be. And same with the city offices, any remodel or anything we do there, hopefully to be out of the Seneca building by the end of April. Tight logistics, it's going to be a little tight. It'll be interesting. We'll know more as we go along and the timing of the permits before we get done. Now for the fun stuff. As you can tell, this is the shot of the site for the operations site. Southwest, you know, the southwest corner is where most of the work is going to be done. Up at the, we're going to redo that parking lot, that north gate up at the top up there. You can barely see that little arrow. That's where most of our focus is, where the work's getting done. I wanted to blow this up quickly and just walk through real quick about, this is the existing building with the stripes. And we're at about 9,500 square feet onto the existing building, totaling over, just over 15,000 usable square feet. And I got the question asked to me the other day, so I'm just going to answer it. And the folks coming from city offices are about 6,000, between 5,000 and 6,000 square feet. That's storage, and then office folks who are coming. You mentioned to us also about making sure we build a little bit of growth in there as well. Part of that growth is with court coming over, so that adds to that square footage. So if we whenever we build a city hall, and if court moves, then that's factored into the growth factor. You figure we have a public multi-purpose room that adds to that square footage. For some reason, we need restrooms. Public restrooms are important. They are gender-neutral restrooms, a little bit different design. Be interesting to see how that works. And then and if you add all of those up, that's where that 9,500 square feet comes in. Give you an idea of the multipurpose room. It's not quite as big as it's just a little bit bigger than this. This is about 11,000 square feet. That multipurpose room is about 15. And then the police building, that's about 17, 18. Kind of give you an idea of the size. The theme is keeping along with the, you guys have probably seen this, but along with the maintenance services building, the brick veneer. This is looking from the southwest view of the existing building. This is a shot of the multipurpose room. It seats about, I don't know exactly what the capacity will be, probably around 100, 90 to 100. Of course, seating depends on what kind of meeting we're having and how many. This is a shot of the permit counter. This is the court counter. Now, one of the things with court you don't see there, and we're probably, based on CJIS and what we're just finding out, we may end up having to put some glass there. We're still got to figure that out, just to know that that might be a slight change. This is a view from the doors coming into the building. It appears a little bit narrow to give you an idea of the city offices. It's actually just a little bit wider than our current city offices entrance. This is a shot of the, and I'll show you where that is. That's the kind of community development area. And I'll go down here to kind of walk through the building really quick. So this is the main entrance. Court's here on the left, multi-purpose room, permit counter, and this is the area that you just saw just in the slide before. So today's step is a GMP contract. And what we're asking today is so guaranteed contract is based on the drawings today and what we think it'll be. This is our guaranteed maximum price. If we ask for additional things or there's something that's really not compensated that's our fault or our fault in fault in the sense of the drawings, we just decide to change something. For example, a glass, there'll be some changes there, but this is our guaranteed ceiling price based on our design today. We went through a bid process. David, I think we had between 5 and 7 on the average contracts bidding on each of the pieces, which is a good sign. That's a good thing. I think we got a good price for what we're doing. That was important. And today we're asking council to direct staff to approve the GMP. And I'm open for any questions or any thoughts you might have.
Do we have any questions on the proposal tonight? Maria?
I'm just wondering, is there any environmentally friendly things going on within the building, or
yes,
like solar panels, or I don't know?
Yeah, there is. Every building we spend, there's an amount, I believe it's 1.5% of the gross building. That's all the costs included that we spend on energy savings. So what we'll do is there's multiple things in the building that we'll have for energy efficient, whether it's the lighting, different type of lights over and above what standard is. And anything that will be left over from that, we're going to add to our solar panel system. So we have solar panels out there existing now on the maintenance services building. So we'll expand that. And depending on how much dollars that is allotted to, they won't move that over with that.
Thank you.
Hopefully that answers your question.
Councilor Kellogg?
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. It's very exciting. Have you gotten to the point yet where you thought about staging and if that's going to have any effect on current operations?
We have. We're actually, we have a staging plan. Actually should have probably brought that and put that in here now. We got a plan where to move the vehicles. We've been doing a lot of homework on that, making sure that that's safe. One of the things we're going to do is we're actually going to move folks out of that building, probably around May 18th, right in there, and just evacuate the site because we think we can get it done quicker. And what the other thing that does, it just gets everybody out of the construction area. So we'll fence that off at that point and just let them go to work and stay out of the way. And we'll be in the buildings probably for about 9 months, give an idea. But we actually, for the cost of those temporary spaces for the type we're using, it won't be real convenient, won't be really the lush tower, that's for sure. But we believe we'll make up the cost in construction savings just in time.
Okay, so all the employees that are currently out there are going to be moved where?
What we're going to do is we're going to have, there'll be 3 trailers for office space and for where the offices are and the folks are today. Then there'll be a 4th trailer that'll be for a meeting space to help take up for the other part of that. There'll be some space also created in the warehouse. So our lunchroom, a lot of that will be bag lunches, those kind of things. Dishwasher won't exist, so we'll have to work through some of those things. But that's kind of the plan for now.
Okay, and any effect or thought about effects on emergency operations if a disaster strikes while we're, displaced?
Well, thankfully we have a police building that we would use in lieu of that as well. It would be a challenge, but the nice part about that is having the warehouse and the fleet building there with the mezzanines.
Yeah.
We would make do. Would it be ideal? No, but could we get through it? Yeah. And we'll still have those other temporary spaces to use as well. If it was an emergency, depending on where they're at, we could potentially go back and use part of the building too.
Okay, thanks, Clay.
Do you have a, Councilor Morrison?
Yeah, thank you. First up, thank you for the presentation. A quick follow-up, Councilor Kellogg's questions. I do appreciate the looking forward to and all the different scenarios that you're envisioning. And this is just a shout out to you and your staff that instead of saying, well, I don't know what we're going to do and this is going to create a tremendous hardship, I love your attitude of just we're going to make it work and we're going to figure it out for 9 months so that it happens. I have 3 questions, and I can't, you already commented on one, so I know you're way ahead of me, but I just, for my own self, just let me wrap this up real quick. You commented that you're going to think about glass in front of the court window. My question was even on a bigger percentage, what kind of security do you envision? And again, and I'm saying this because I think you and I 10 years ago, 20 years ago, never would have envisioned this, but a lot younger people would be stunned that there is no glass there, for example, because that's all they know. And it is a sign of the times. It's something we have to be concerned about. And I speak because specifically now all the schools have spent a lot of money remodeling to make only one entrance. And my kids, I have 3 kids at high school, and they're already, you can't go in that door anymore. And it's like, yeah, there's a reason for that. And so my comment to you is there's a reason for that as well. And so is that something clearly you've already thought about because you're touching on the glass we talked about? Is there any other additional, like a door that is locked once you're into the lobby area that you can't proceed throughout the rest of the building? And
correct. If I went back through just real quick, that entrance away there, go back to permit counter. You can see that door.
Okay.
So what'll happen is that the reason for the glass is more for if somebody's not in the office for prestigious reasons, just for protection of privacy.
Right.
Not because of fear so much for the glass. It's for those reasons. What there is there's a pull down screen that's going to come down and drop down here in front of the permit counter. So then that door that's there on the right, that's lockable, and that way that keeps public separate from the rest of the area. So there's just the one entrance coming in. The plan is for the back doors coming in that there'll be a keypad. So you'll have a key code to go in if you're aware to do that, so staff can come in and out. But also it prevents somebody else from coming in the back door accidentally.
Okay. The second question I have is currently, if I'm not mistaken, the court system, they like fines and stuff, that they're paying that at the police station at the window there. Mm-hmm. I'm assuming that entire operation then moves to this new building.
Correct.
So I'm interested at some point in time hearing about your timeline in terms of signage, notification, telling people where they're supposed to be when they don't realize too late that they're at the wrong place, and I'm assuming you have a robust plan for that.
Well, and as it is, the plan actually isn't in place yet, but it's something we've talked about often. We recognize that we need to do that. And so our focus has been on getting the design done, getting this part of it, and then the signage and the logistics and all of those pieces are coming this next part of that. So the
Okay.
next few months we'll be talking pretty heavily about what is that, where does the signage need to be, how are we gonna get that out to the community, what kind of, what kind of media do we wanna use. I think we have a pretty good idea, but we just need to get that concrete plan down and then do that.
And Counselor, I think there was a slide somewhere in there that talked about public engagement, because we have that same kind of issue for community development, the development community that comes for building permits and planning, the planning counter. We will get into gear on that wayfinding signage and notifying all of our customers, including court, on the new location. We don't plan to spring it on people.
I knew you weren't, but you know, I had to ask the question.
Well,
Thank you very
thank you.
much.
Excellent. I had a question about the meeting space the public meeting space that is slated to be added. Is it in the budget to have some sort of AV amenities or IT amenities in there so that it can be as useful as the police station public room?
Yes, it'll actually be set up real similar to that. That multipurpose room, in fact, let me go back to it real quick. If you look at the top, right at the top up there, that's for a wall. So like at operations, if you're familiar with operations, the lunchroom, we got the wall there. The reason for that is one side of that can be set up so it's designed for like a conference room for all the planning meetings are there, so it's just set up all the time. And the other room to be able to be used for the different meetings that happen. And then at the times when court happens, then we'll clear that out, open up the wall and have enough room for court. And there'll be AV on both sides. So one side will have a big TV and that kind of a requirement. The other one will have the projector on the west wall and have that same situation. The nice part is, the other thing that I didn't touch on, the benefit, this building, we designed it, we didn't permit it, but we designed it to meet all of the seismic 4 qualities. So it gives us a lot more EOC capability in the future for managing emergencies. Plus all our staff will be right there where we can work. So depending on what time that happens, if it's in the nighttime or if it's daytime, right?
Yep.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it did. Thank you very much.
Anything else?
Well, there's one other thing I would like to add. I thought it was extremely wonderful to hear you talk about some of the initial plans that were coming in over budget and the fact that you were able to have a collaborative discussion with the contractor, with our consultants, and come up with a way, including staff from the city, to very wisely and smartly come up with a design that not only meets our needs and our needs in the future, but also we were able to shave many million dollars off of this construction.
And still get something that's functional, it'll be good. So
I thought that was very good and very commendable to be able to.
Everybody, thanks to everybody from staff to these guys, to everybody's working on it together. So it's a great effort.
Yeah,
It's a great
well, it's nice to hear, being done before the deadline and being done at or under budget. It's very nice.
I'm looking forward to the ribbon cutting.
I
Yes,
kind of
as are we all.
want to riff on that just a little bit. Thank you, Counselor. Because when we came to you originally and Dawn gave an amount of money, $8 million, and said, and you said, okay, $8 million, that's what we can afford. We have $4 million cash on hand, and we're going to finance the other $4 million. And we've because of the team and Clay, like, we have stuck with that budget. It's like we don't have any more money. That's what we've got. And there were things that we wanted that were, bigger and better. But I think the building that we're going to get, I feel so proud of the fact that we took that money. It's no new taxpayer dollars, and we're coming up with something so functional, and and it meets all the needs, and it's on budget and on time. And like, I just feel super proud of. I know Clay talked about the team and Clay, but I feel so proud of them and for sticking with that budget. So thank you for supporting that.
No, I think that's wonderful. We had talked at one point about the possibility of getting some sort of, I don't know, shuttle or public transportation or something to help people make it from the city center out to that area, because it's really not on a bus line or anything. People that would either need to be going to court.
It is actually.
Oh, it is now, okay.
Do you want to?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
We've
Okay.
been working with, and by we, I mean Garrett and some of the community development team have been working with the Ride Connection, the Tualatin Shuttle. So they currently go past that location right now, and they're working on, by the time this opens, I believe we will have a stop there.
Perfect.
And so it will in effect be on the transit line.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we got to make sure that it's easy and convenient for people that need the services to be able to get out there and back in a safe
And we
and
have a number
timely
of
manner.
Right, and we have employees that are transit dependent, and so it'll serve them as well as municipal court or the development community or the public counter.
Yeah. Excellent, thank you. Does anyone have an interest in speaking on this item on the agenda? Would they like to come forward with comments in support or questions about the project? I guess at this point, if we have no questions and we have no questions from the audience, then we can enter into deliberations. Are there any questions from council that hasn't been answered, or any further questions? Would anyone like to make a motion in support of our resolution 5485-20?
I'd like to move that we approve resolution number 5485-20.
Do I have a second for that motion? Perfect. We need to do a vote, roll call vote? Okay. I guess we'll start this way. Councilor Kellogg?
Aye.
Councilor Morrison?
Yes.
Councilor Reyes?
Yes.
Councilor Pratt? And yay, yes, me as well, so it's unanimous.
Awesome.
Great.
Fantastic. Thank
Thank
you very much.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, no, well done. Looking forward to it.
Me too.
It's going to be a fantastic addition to the city. Well, that's everything on the agenda, so we can now move to communication from counselors. Who would like to start? Would you like to? No, I wish I had a flip a coin.
Fine, no, I'll go.
Guess be you.
I don't have a lot,
Oh, yes.
but what I do have is Clackamas County Coordinating Committee meeting was very interesting. We're going to have a presentation on the tolling by ODOT at our next meeting. They, as Garrett discovered, because he was at the Washington County Coordinating Committee where there was the same presentation, and it was pretty calm, and there were very few questions. And they basically got lectured by multiple members of the Clackamas County Coordinating Committee. So kind of interesting. On that subject, the C4 retreat is June 5th and 6th. All council members are invited. I know some Tualatin staff is planning on attending. I went last year. It is very well attended, has historically been well attended. They touch on a lot of different subject matters, including this year's, they're focusing on transportation, and they expect the keynote speaker to be, they're working on the new head of ODOT. There will be a presentation on housing, including the CET, which is the new construction excise tax. And then also at the request of multiple members, they are going to be adding in something on the climate program. Understanding cap and trade is kind of in mix right now, but there's a lot of interest. I brought this up at the last council meeting, that the current the current form of the cap and trade proposal allows for funds to be designated to cities to create, and mandates them to create a climate change policy, a carbon footprint policy, as you will. And so they're going to spend some time talking about that, and see what the different cities are doing. And as I said at the last meeting, Milwaukee has this very elaborate plan that they spent over 2 years putting together. Lake Oswego has a plan that, by their own admission, they spent about 6 weeks putting together. And that's all fine. I'm not criticizing either one of them. I'm just saying that there's a wide range of different ways we can go. I do, though, think that it's something we need to be looking at and have some sort of idea of how Again, as I said at the last meeting, 25% of our fleet in our natural gas or electric or whatever that might be, whatever that looks like. And Clackamas County is in the process of developing a program that will help cities, and we certainly could take advantage of that. So if you're interested, we can get information from the city manager, who will be happy to set you up. It's at the Resort of the Mountains, which used to be called something, the Welch's something else. It's really not. It's kind of cool. It was. I enjoyed it. I had a really good time last year, and I'm looking forward to it again this year. And that's all I have for now.
Thank you. So last Monday, I attended the TriMet open house for the Southwest Corridor concept design report. Conceptual design report to see what some of the stations are going to look like and some of the interactivity. The steering committee will reconvene next month to address comments on the CDR and to continue to push this process forward. The only item that I still have an objection with is the connection between the West Station and where the Southwest Corridor trains plan to go. It's about 3 blocks. Those tracks basically cross at the Bonita Station. I don't see any reason why we couldn't have a station there to make transfers as easy as possible. Second, with respect to Councilor Morrison's comments on the tolling, Metro is also conducting a congestion pricing study. And one of the things that has come out of that, at least from my viewpoint, is a pretty serious question about where that tolling infrastructure is going to be put. That relates to both I-5 and 205. All of the maps show that the tolling will start around the Stafford Road exit. If it's after the Stafford Road exit, the actual toll booth, then you can count on every individual who wants to avoid that toll getting off at Stafford and taking, Borland Drive over to Willamette. It will be a disaster. And so anytime you are in a conversation about tolling, say we want the infrastructure before Stafford Road. And the same thing applies on I-5. There's no visibility on where they're going to start the tolling station, but if it's after Nyberg exit, then you can anticipate a whole bunch of people getting off and going up Boone's Ferry. So the third item I have is an unfortunate and a sad one. As most on the council already know, TVFNR station captain Dave Pearson did pass away after a battle with some meningitis issues and other things. So a terrible blow for our community. They are going to have a celebration of life March 16th at 2 p.m. out at Rolling Hills. And so I encourage anybody who wants to attend to do so. Thank you.
I went to the Westland State of the City with the mayor, which was interesting because there was Councilor Walters and the mayor were the only 2 people attending from the council. I was a little envious of for the state of the city. I was a little envious that they have they have a bond and they're doing all kinds of things with it, like parks and revitalizing their downtown and transportation. But that being said, it made me really appreciate, I think there's a level of integrity on this council with our police chief and with our city manager that is really appreciated, and it lets us all use our time to do things for the city. And I really appreciate that we have that here. The other thing I just wanted to, back to the city manager, I just really wanted to commend Sherilyn for so quickly, and the executive team for so quickly with the coronavirus coming up with procedures, communications, and what we're going to do in the future. So we're addressing it up front. Also, I just wanted, on that same topic of the coronavirus, I just want to make sure that we're all realize that, the washing the hands, and there's a lot of important things, but there's also a lot of fallacies out there right now about, things going on. And one of them is that really affected me was that people think it's dangerous to go to blood drives. And there's a real need right now, and they think there'll be a real need with this. So there will be a blood drive at Meridian Park on the 17th, and you can also go to Bloodworks northwest.org to look for blood drives, but that's something I'd really like to encourage. The other one is that somehow you can contract this from going to Asian restaurants, which I find just facetious. So I just wanted to put a shout out. We have La Sen, Lee's Kitchen, Mashita Teriyaki, Panda Express, Azumi, and My Asia that I could find, and I've been to most of them. So if you feel like supporting the economy, that might be a good place to do it.
Yeah, I really, yeah, I did all the whole coronavirus situation, how it was handled by the city. So I commend your team and everyone. The communication was great, and it still is out there, and hopefully we'll survive this again. But I had the opportunity last Monday, or Wednesday, to interview the committee, a young girl to join the budget committee. So she's a local resident, and she's like a teenager, like 13 or 14. So that's amazing that our young people are interested in knowing what we do with our money and how to put a budget together and things like that. So it was a really interesting interview with her, and I was really proud that we have those kinds of young people that are interested in doing things that are extremely, I mean, I never thought about that when I was 13. So I was very proud. I'm very proud of our youth here. The other thing, I attended to support the library and the levy out there. I attended the diversity task force, and we talked to the Spanish-speaking community about the importance of the library and why we want this and how much we use the library, and it was really well taken, and they had their questions, and and I just want to thank Councilor Kellogg for being there and helping me answer all the questions. But he actually he was the one who took the initiative to talk to them, and I kind of translated a little bit, but yeah, it was a really great community meeting for the Spanish-speaking community to understand why it's important for us to support the library and the levy. So that's all.
Fantastic, especially because what I wanted to talk about, or what I wanted to mention tonight, is hearing the presentations for the levy renewals, not new levies, but the levy renewals for Wickles and for the public safety levy. I just think it's so important for us to talk to our individual constituencies as well as the unity that we show as a council in support of these levies, because it looks that there could be as many as 6 bond/taxing measures for voters to vote on this year. In May, if we have the tobacco tax, or the gas tax and the homeless tax on the May ballot, and then in November, if we have the transportation, expanding the library system, the tobacco tax, and Portland Public Schools, that's an enormous amount of new tax/bond levy proposals out there in front of voters. And that's, each one of those is a big ask, but you put them together and it's an enormous ask of the community. And I think in situations like that where there's that much going on, it's really easy for some of our local levies to get a little bit lost, and especially when you get in sort of a tax fatigue that voters, I think, you can easily face, especially if you've got 4 measures on in one election cycle. But I just want to commend the outreach that you guys have done, and the fact that we as a council are putting our names and putting in the voters pamphlet our support of our local levies. And then just always to remind voters that it is a renewal. It is not a new levy or a new tax. These are simply renewals to keep existing services that already benefit our community. So I appreciate that very much, and just kind of wanted to put that out there. And then if we've all shared and there's nothing more, for the good of the order, as Lou used to say, does someone want to make a motion to adjourn?
I motion that we adjourn.
Perfect. All in favor? Aye. Good night. Thank you all.